Callie, the headmistress of the school, was becoming increasingly anxious. The brand new equipment for the chemistry lab was promised to be delivered on Monday, but here it was already Wednesday, and there was no sign of the delivery truck. In the evening, she made a call to the company she had contracted with and was informed that the truck carrying the equipment had departed and would arrive the following day. As Callie approached the school the next morning, her eyes fell upon a small truck with a covered bed parked at the gate. Finally, she exhaled with a sense of relief and took a moment to pause at the school's entrance. It was still early and the children had not yet arrived, while the truck driver was clearly fast asleep. Not wanting to stoop down to the level of a loader, Callie headed towards the kitchen and instructed Adeline, the cook, to wake up the chauffeur. "Get that sleepyhead up and about so he can finally unload the equipment," Adeline directed her assistant before hurrying off to the truck. It took quite some time of knocking on the door before the drowsy young man stuck his head out, seemingly unaware of his surroundings due to a deep slumber. "Simon, I'll get you some breakfast," Adeline said with a smile. The guy, still rubbing his eyes and unable to muster a response, looked quite comical. "I can even pour you a cup of coffee. Just freshen up a bit first," Adeline insisted. At last, the driver hopped out of the cab and obediently followed her into the school building. When Adeline placed a steaming cup of coffee before the driver, he looked at her, perplexed, and asked, "Do you treat everyone to breakfast this way every morning?" "Not usually," Adeline responded with a chuckle. "You delivered our equipment." Her voice trailed off as she noticed the man's startled and slightly anxious expression. She quickly added, "Or didn't you?" The driver stammered, "Oh, well, no, I did bring a delivery late last night, but it seems safer to be here, with all the streetlights and a guard, rather than out on the highway by myself." Standing up with a heavy heart, he muttered, "I guess I should get going." But Adeline waved him off with a warm smile. "Relax, stay and enjoy your coffee. I'm Adeline, by the way." That evening, Ethan parked his car outside the school once more. He simply couldn't tear himself away from Adeline. Just 4 months later, Adeline packed up and moved to Athens City, despite Callie's reluctance to see her go. After all, who can stand in the way of true love? 8 years rolled by, and Ethan and Adeline built a happy life together. Ethan drove for the city's administration, while Adeline worked as a chef at a renowned restaurant. However, there was a lingering cloud over their joy. Ethan longed desperately for a child. He constantly urged Adeline to get tested and seek treatment, baffled by her hesitation. "Adeline, have you ever thought about having a baby?" Ethan inquired one evening. "What's a family without children? I've always envisioned having a boy. Or a girl. Perhaps even twins." Finn passed along the contact of a reputable gynecologist. "I'll arrange the details and you can go see him to figure this out together." Ethan wrapped his arms around his wife, hoping to lift her spirits, yet she broke down in tears. "Please forgive me, Ethan," Adeline sobbed. "I should have been upfront with you, but I feared you might abandon me, and I cherish you deeply." Adeline confessed to her husband that she had kept her previous marriage a secret. She had left Kai just 6 months into their marriage after suffering at his hands. Her former spouse had been horribly abusive, lashing out over trivial issues, be it overly salty soup, a poorly made bed, or any minor tardiness from work. His aggression escalated even when she was pregnant, culminating in a severe beating that led her to the hospital. There, after losing her child, she discovered that she could no longer conceive. Unable to bear the anguish, she left Kai. Despite his subsequent attempts to woo her back, complete with threats, Adeline was no longer cowed by him, but filled with loathing instead. Eventually, Adeline secured a divorce, reverted to her maiden name, and endeavored to leave those ghastly memories behind. Ethan was taken aback. He sympathized with Adeline, but he was deeply wounded by her deception. her concealment of her infertility, and her lack of faith in his love. That night, they slept separately. From that day forward, Ethan began treating his wife with coldness. Adeline understood him and hoped that love would triumph and he would forgive her. She patiently waited until one day, trouble struck. Ethan got into an accident. On a wintry New Year's Eve, his car skidded, colliding with a pole. Thankfully, he remained unharmed. But there was a pregnant young woman in the car with him. She ended up in the hospital. Adeline. "We need to have a conversation," Ethan said with such seriousness that Adeline's heart clenched. She immediately sensed trouble brewing. "I have to leave you," he said, the words have to lingering in the air. But how could that be? Who could compel him? They were in love. They loved each other. Ethan was quiet, mustering his bravery before he started to unfold his narrative. Adeline was all ears, barely able to draw a breath. It was straight out of a cinematic scene. A strikingly delicate girl stumbled and twisted her ankle, and Ethan was there to aid her. He effortlessly swept her into his arms and carried her to the closest bench, where he carefully straightened her leg. As the pain subsided, they began to get to know each other. Evelyn was nothing like Adeline. Exceptionally slender and perpetually melancholic, she fell for Ethan right away. He could see the adoration in her eyes, and it thrilled him. He made no commitments, and she expected none. A month subsequent to their initial encounter, when Evelyn revealed her pregnancy, Ethan was at a loss for words. His heart swelled with the joy of impending fatherhood, yet he also felt a crushing guilt toward Adeline. Deep down, Ethan cherished his wife, despite everything. He was torn about what to do next. And there, wearing her melancholic grin, Evelyn said, "I understand everything, darling, and I ask nothing of you. Just knowing our child is part yours makes me joyful. Be with me if you can. If you can't, I bear no resentment, nor will I ever tarnish your name to our child." Lately, this has been Ethan's life, tormented by remorse over his actions with Adeline, yet filled with joy at the prospect of fatherhood. Suddenly, tragedy struck. They were en route to the maternity clinic when their vehicle lost control and collided with a lamppost. Who dialed for the emergency services remained a mystery to Ethan. Both were rushed to the medical center. Ethan escaped with minor scrapes and contusions, whereas Evelyn required an urgent operation. The medical team pulled off a miracle, saving both mother and child, though they cautioned that the baby's heart was exceptionally frail. It's remarkable she managed to survive the surgery. Having been sent home, Evelyn needed Ethan's presence more than ever. "Look, I've wronged you, but she needs me desperately right now. I regret my infidelity and departure, but I have no choice. You have strength. That's why you captivated my heart." These final words struck Adeline with profound sadness. Strong and hale as she might be, it brought her no comfort. Adeline withheld her tears, cast no blame upon him. Instead, she condemned herself for it all. Had she been upfront from the start, they could have addressed the issue together or accepted it. But fear kept her silent, doubting his comprehension, and consequently, she lost Ethan. In an attempt to lift her morale, Adeline threw herself into her work even more. Upon hearing of her split with Ethan, the restaurant's owner wasted no time in suggesting they meet beyond the confines of work. He had long admired her, joyful yet diligent, stunning yet serious. She accepted, unsure why. Maybe she couldn't maintain her resilience indefinitely. Perhaps she yearned to be viewed as vulnerable, deserving of sympathy. 3 months drifted by. One day, Ethan appeared at Adeline's workplace, causing her to gasp at his altered appearance. His face was pallid, his hair streaked with gray. "What's wrong? Are you all right?" Adeline hurried over to him, her voice laced with concern. "Is everything okay? Do you need assistance?" "Yes, Adeline, I do need assistance. It's not just me either." Ethan was anxiously fiddling with his car keys. his eyes brimming with tears. She's no longer with us. Her heart gave out during childbirth. He clenched his jaw, inhaled sharply, and finally resolved himself to continue. Our little girl was born, fragile, yet somehow still strong. I'm overwhelmed by it all, and now they're talking about placing her with another adoptive family. Ethan's gaze locked desperately with Adeline's, pleading for empathy. However, Adeline, taken aback, could only gape in shock and stand mutely. Just then, Camden, the proprietor of the diner, approached, laid a gentle hand on Adeline's shoulder, and spoke softly, "Adeline, shall we leave?" Ethan bowed his head in resignation. "I get it." He was on the verge of walking away when Camden bluntly interjected, "Hold on, what exactly do you think you understand? Which lady are you abandoning? She's still in love with you. My apologies for butting in, Adeline. Honestly, I'd have swept her off her feet myself if she'd ever moved past you." Ethan turned to Adeline once more with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I regret telling you I loved you then. It wasn't true. The truth is, it has always been me who loved you and still loves you. I couldn't bear to leave the mother of my child in distress. The guilt would drive me insane, so I tried to mend things. But divorcing you was never something I intended to do. Adeline, please don't reject me right away. Let's go see Naomi together, and then you can make your decision. You don't have to say anything, just give me a nod." Camden let out a long, heavy sigh and exited the room, while Adeline slowly nodded in agreement. "Mama, can you teach me to make your special pie? Eric tried it when he came to meet us, and jokingly said he'd propose to me if I made it myself. Of course, it was just banter, but I still want to learn," Naomi said with a hopeful smile. Adeline embraced her daughter affectionately. She loved Naomi deeply and felt a profound gratitude towards the woman who had sacrificed her own life to bring them happiness.